First found out with my youngest son. He's 7 now. I was actually pregnant with him at the time when they found out. And I didn't know much about nutrition or anything back then. So I was considering terminating pregnancy at that time because I was about 3 months along. I knew nothing about cancer at all, let alone specifically cervical cancer. So I didn't even think nutrition right away when I was diagnosed. And when I had decided that I was going to keep my son and go through the pregnancy and then figure out, because they said it was stage 1, which wasn't horrible, but it needed to be taken care of. And I had him, and then during the whole pregnancy I was researching like mad, different, and of course I went to alternative sites and everything, because their recommendation was, of course, hysterectomy, localized radiation, or even chemo if they deemed that it had spread far enough, which I was not into at all, because I actually had a friend whose mother had cured herself of breast cancer several times, and looking back now, I think she was really key, and she lived to be about 88, and she first got cancer when she was 42 or something like that, and it was breast cancer. It was different cancer, but I guess cancer kind of, especially women's reproductive cancers, are very similar. So I was just kind of going by, everything she did.
Is there a higher rate of that with women here and that kind of cancer?
I don't know.
Like some men have more cancers here.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know the statistics on that, but we have a lot of reproductive issues with the females in our family, and my thinking is it might have had something to do with my dad being in Vietnam, and when he was sprayed with Agent Orange. There's a real close link to reproductive cancers in that. So, and all my sisters have issues. Well, my one sister has endometriosis. My oldest sister had to have a hysterectomy at age 38. My other sister, Jody, had real issues with fibroids to where she had to have surgery to have them removed. So I don't know if that's a link as far as a genetic mutation from DNA from Agent Orange. They see it a lot in Vietnam too. Horrific, exposure to that did terrible disfigurations and mutations, and they're still seeing it in the grandchildren there. So I don't know if it's that or if it's regional here, because I have heard a friend of mine who moved away from here, she lives in Flagstaff now, that she was wondering, she said it was more in the Durango area though, the
I heard of
Southwest.
someone else having another kind of cancer, either that or something similar, and then I heard from someone else because the elevation we're at, that we're closer to the effects of the cosmic rays during the solar minimum.
Yeah, at the
Or
higher
in general.
elevation,
Yeah.
another one's skin cancers are higher here, obviously. Okay.
So what were some of the things?
Well, I linked a lot of hormonal, which is female reproductive problems are usually hormonal related. So I gave up meat for that reason, because there's a lot of extra antibiotics and hormones that they put into meat, and dairy. Gave up dairy. Started getting into like a lot of greens. Became a vegan, and for about 6 months I was basically doing pretty much close to a Gerson therapy. I don't know if you've heard of that. I was pretty much doing that for 6 months, and I kept going back to the doctors, and they kept insisting on doing more stuff, and I declined. And then I think it was a year afterwards, they had pap smears about every month. But then a year, the final one came completely normal, and they kind of backed off a little bit, but they still, they were still insisting on it even when things were reversed. And the more I researched it, I realized that a lot of those cervical abnormalities will rectify themselves. So it's just such a buildup of hormones. But then, let's see, with was my daughter. She was born in 2014, and after she was born, they discovered that the cancer had come back. And see, I've been kind of negligent not going to the doctors. You're supposed to get your pap smear every year, and I was trying to avoid them altogether. So they wanted to do the same thing, and I told them no. I was like, I cured this naturally last time. In the meantime, my diet had gone back to what it was. I ate meat, gravy, dairy again, and so I had to get back on that strict regimen and pretty much stick to it, and it cleared itself up. And I've been cancer-free since then.
Okay, so what were the main things that you cut out and then the things that you added to the diet?
The main thing I cut out was sugar, actually, because sugar fuels cancer cell growth rapidly. And I pretty much went plant-based on everything. Cut out meat. And that was basically it. And I did a lot of green smoothies. Did 2 or 3 of those a day. And lost a lot of weight. But yeah, in the end, I think that was pretty much, well, and I was in a really bad relationship at the time. That was kind of toxic too, so I think it was a combination of, those things. And I'm not in that relationship anymore, so I think that helps too, because I think stress has a lot to do with our general health altogether.